Hi, Claire, and welcome to Authorlink today to discuss your wonderful new book out in July of this year called The Alchemy of a Blackbird. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
We're great too. We're very excited about this novel and to hear your progress and how you got to this point in time with this beautiful story. So we love the first line, and we want to just quickly paraphrase it right now. Desperate to escape the Nazis, painter Remedios Varo and her lover, poet Benjamin Perret, flee Paris for a safe house for artists on the Riviera. What a fantastic first line that is. How did you come up with it, and how did you first find inspiration for this story?
Well, my first inspiration for the story was viewing one of Remedios Varo's paintings, and I'm actually going to put it up on the screen here for you.
Right.
So you can take a look. Wait, I think you have to let me share screen because
Okay.
you're the host. Sorry. Or anyway, I can, anyway, I saw Remedios Varo's painting The Call, which depicts a woman in kind of these orange robes walking through a medieval town. And she's lit up with this kind of illuminated energy. And when I saw it, when I saw this painting, it just kind of rearranged something within me in like a minute. And I knew I had to know about whoever had painted this painting. So I started researching Varo's life and reading about it. And as I read about her life, I realized how influenced by the tarot and occultism and the esoteric she was. And I had been very interested in the tarot myself for about 10 years. And so what happened was I was working on another book, but as I read more and more about Varo's life, the two things kind of just dovetailed, and I realized that I needed to write about her life. So that's really, it was really just seeing that painting where the true inspiration came from, and where I started going down this road to figure out about her life.
Right. So you mentioned the tarot. So what was it about it that you found so interesting?
I started studying the tarot maybe 10 years prior to when I encountered Varo's work. And I started with the Smith Rider Waite deck, which is kind of like the tarot deck that everyone's very familiar with. And if you look at those cards, every one of the cards has, it's like a little story in the card. It has a lot of action going on. Usually they're kind of like little, I don't know, portals or something. And as a storyteller, because the cards kind of are telling you a story, I think they really drew me in. And much like Varo's paintings too, her paintings also draw you in. They have a lot of action in them. Usually someone's arriving, someone's leaving, there are like visitations happening, there's travel, all these things. And so these little things that kind of depicted action as a storyteller, that's really compelling. So
Wow.
sorry, I was just going to say, so I started studying the tarot and just using it in my own life for self-discovery and self-exploration. And I really had no intention to ever write about it or use it in my writing. So it was just kind of a bit of synchronicity that I encountered Varo and her connection with the tarot, and realized, oh, I should, write about this thing that's been in my life for a while.
Wow. So from a point of view of getting messages from um, another realm, or more like just getting messages from your own subconscious about what you need to work out in your own reality?
I mean, I think for me, it's a little of both. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I believe about other realms, but I do kind of believe in synchronicities or kismet or, coincidences, these sort of things, which I think can speak to you through the cards. But I more kind of use it in the second way you're mentioning, as a tool for self-discovery, self-exploration. I think sometimes, for me at least, if something's going on in my life, I can be looping and looping and looping in a pattern of thought about it. And a lot of times the tarot can offer, a new perspective of thinking about it, or a different archetypal story to kind of stop the looping and think about it in a new way.
Terrific. Oh, that's so interesting. Did you want to see if you can?
Yeah, let's see if I can do it now. I'm sorry. It says,
No, no, no problem.
it says host as disabled participant screen sharing. So I think you have to do something so I can share my
Oh, I
screen.
do
I'm sorry.
apologize.
No,
Perhaps
that's
I
okay.
can perhaps I can put a picture of it.
Yeah, it's called The Call.
Yeah.
And
The,
it hangs in the National Museum for Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. So
terrific.
yeah.
Thank you. I'll make sure I'll put it in the bottom of our interview today.
Thank you.
So how long did it take you to write The Alchemy of a Blackbird? And did you have like any roadblocks along the way, like with your publisher or with your editor in general?
Well, the biggest roadblock I had was COVID, probably because I started writing it, prior to 2020. And then when everybody went into lockdown in March of 2020, I was just kind of, I think, like a lot of people, so overwhelmed with the situation in the world that I really could not focus or concentrate for quite a long time. But then after about, I would say like 4 or 5 months, I realized I had to do something or else I was going to go nuts. So I had maybe half the book drafted at that point, and I went back and picked it up and finished drafting it. And then once I have a semi-coherent draft, I tend to let it sit for a minute, and then I go back and rip it all apart and revise. In terms of roadblocks with my publisher or my editor, I didn't really have any roadblocks. My current publisher published my last 2 books, and the same editor bought this book as well. So that was like a very smooth story for me, and for which I'm really grateful. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that your first book, if I remember correctly, is The Gilded Age, which was inspired by your love of Edith Wharton. And your second book, which was The Necklace, was inspired by some family memorabilia, which I found so fascinating reading about, like an actual necklace that was handed down in the generations, plus this scrapbook of different types of parties that your mother-in-law, I think, held at her home.
Yes, one generation up. Great, yeah, grandmother.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just found that
Great.
amazing. What an inspirational.
Oh,
Like I love scrapping, and I love doing that. Even like on Facebook or Instagram, it's like the new scrapbook of the. When I was a kid, I used to do that a lot. With pen and paper and colors and like little mementos, and just the idea of it really interested me. So how do you generally find your inspiration, or is it just something that comes quite organically to you?
well, I think with the first two books, I was really started with place, with setting. Aside from being inspired, like you said, by Edith Wharton's House of Mirth, because she's my favorite writer. And then with the necklace, I made up the necklace that came through the generations, but I had spent some time living in India and became fascinated by the jewelry there, which is where the idea of the necklace came from. And then you're quite right. There was a scrapbook. I think it's actually my husband, Sandy. It was his great grandmother kept the scrapbook in the 1920s, and it was very elaborate. She would put the seating charts for her dinners in the scrapbook, and photos, and she would put little newspaper clippings of what was going on in the world too. And for a writer opening that thing, it was like a portal to another time. And it was a huge inspiration for the 1920s portions of the necklace, for sure. So I feel really lucky that it was in my life. Yeah. But yeah, both those books started with setting, and this book started more with character. So it was a bit of a change for me.
Right. Yeah. Your history is quite interesting. Your husband, Sandy, or Samuel Sterling McMillan, the fourth, was the great great-grandson of Cleveland Bridge and Railroad tycoon, if I understand correctly, Amasa Stone, and great-grandson of ship and mine magnate Samuel Mathern. So how did you meet? And is he your first reader? Who is?
We met, we were both living in San Francisco at the time, and we met on a blind date. My friend was dating his roommate, and she was like, I have to set you up with this guy. So that was how we met. And yes, he is my first reader. He is a businessman. That's his background. So he doesn't really have a literature background. And when he first started reading for me, he would say, like, this part's a little boring, or this character doesn't make sense. And I'd think, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I'd give it to my writer friends, and my friends would say, at this point, the plot slows down a bit. And I was like, oh, you're saying it's boring. Or they say, the motivations of this character are a bit unclear. I'm like, oh, you're saying the character doesn't make sense. So I learned that Sandy actually is an excellent first reader. He just doesn't, say what he thinks in that writerly way. And, your writer friends too can help you in that, they say the plot is slowing down here because you have this huge flashback and you need to make that its own scene, or, they'll kind of give you suggestions. Whereas Sandy, he'll just say, this is boring. This doesn't work. So I've learned to listen to him. Absolutely.
Terrific.
And he is, in that way, he is a great first reader.
Yeah. So I understand that you're a lawyer. Are you still a practicing lawyer, or did you just give that up once you started writing?
No, thank goodness. I like to say I'm a recovering lawyer. So I don't practice anymore. Thank goodness. I was pretty unhappy as a lawyer. I really enjoyed law school and the study of law, but the actual practice of it was not a great fit for me. So I'm really happy to be doing what I do now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And when did you decide to go fully into writing and get out of law? Was it before your first work, your first novel?
Well, what happened was we had been living in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is super expensive. And we decided to move back to Cleveland, which has much more livable, I think, standard of living. And so because of that, I could actually, and we want to start a family too. So I could actually take a break while I had my babies and try and write. So that was how it all kind of dovetailed.
That's lovely. And then you went and did an MFA at Bennington, if I can remember correctly.
Yes, I did an MFA at Bennington College. There, they have a low residency format. So I would be there on campus for 2 weeks in January and 2 weeks in July. And then in between, you work with a member of the faculty on your thesis, which is, it's a book length work. So, and then at the end of 2 years, you have your MFA. And it was really great for me because I didn't at that time have a community of writers. And it really gave me that. I still have friends and readers from that program who are friends. So it's wonderful. Yeah.
That is wonderful. Terrific. So who are your favorite authors? Like, who has inspired you to, have you become other than Edith Wharton?
Yeah, other than Edith, who I love so much. I mean, I love the modern authors who I'll just read anything they write is, Donna Tartt, obviously. Zadie Smith, I think, is a master of modern dialogue. I love Andrea Lee's books. I don't think she's writing anymore, but I love her books. I just picked up Emma Klein's most recent book, The Guest, and I love The Girls. So yeah, those are some of my favorite writers currently writing today.
Terrific. And so if you were, allowed to invite anybody over for dinner, whether it be a person alive or passed away or literary or not, who would you invite?
Oh, I can invite fictional people too. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you can do anything.
Oh, okay. Well, for sure, I have to have Remedios Varo there, and her
Right.
best friend Leonora Carrington has to come, and Edith Wharton has to come, although she'll probably intimidate all of us.
Yeah.
And then I've been reading recently so much about Marjorie Cameron, the artist, and Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons was one of the founders of JPL, of modern rocketry, and both of them were very much into the occult, and they seem really wild, so maybe we'll have them there. And who else should we invite? Could we invite Henry Winter from The Secret History, although he also would probably intimidate everybody. And Lily Bart. Let's have Lily Bart, because she needs to come and like get a feminist education in 2024.
Terrific. Wow, I love it. You know what? This is an excellent way of leading me into my next question, which is, people that write characters for a living find them as almost family members or enemies, but anyway, so real to life that they can literally have their own invitation for dinner. What is it about creating a figment of our imagination, or that that makes us believe that this person that we've created come to life, to the point that there are some writers, not you, some writers that I've interviewed where they talk about their characters as living beings, and they become a little bit I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like, well, you've made this person up. They're not really real. They have become real because you're so effective at writing about them and who they are. But like, get a grip. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I have.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, some people say, "Oh, my characters speak to me,"
Yes,
and I think,
that's what I'm
"Wow,
saying.
lucky you! My characters have never spoken to me. Like I wish they would." But I
Yeah.
think that those characters that kind of live inside us forever. I think a lot of times it's because the author has touched into, I don't want to say an archetype, but something universal in that character. I mean, I think a lot about Elizabeth Bennet and Fitzwilliam Darcy, right? Like that's a couple for the ages, and no one can get enough of them. And I think it's because we all know a Mr. Darcy and an Elizabeth Bennet in our lives, kind of, who can't get out of their own armor, their own shell, their own way. And so when we go back and read Jane Austen's version of that, we think, it's so satisfying because we know those characters. And I think that's, similar, or the character is just so other. I'm thinking about Tom Ripley in the Patricia Highsmith books. Like, I don't know a sociopath like that, but Patricia Highsmith can kind of lift the top of their brain open, and you can get a really good look inside. I think also sometimes with writers, when they really love their characters, you feel that, and it gives them a lot of energy, because I think if you've read The Talented Mr. Ripley or any of the Ripley books, you feel that Highsmith really loved that character, and you feel that when you read it, and it makes it a pleasure to read. Yeah,
definitely. Mm-hmm. So what are you working on now, or are you just resting for the moment?
I'm trying to draft out a book right now, and I was kind of sad to leave the world of like the occult and esotericism. So that'll certainly make an appearance again in the book, because I enjoyed working with those aspects. So,
terrific.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was a real pleasure talking to you about The Alchemy of a Blackbird and your writing progress and process in general. And we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.